So this time we'll be focusing on the Renaissance period. So when we talk of the Renaissance period, so it is a French word which means rebirth. Kaya nga 'di ba rebirth? Kasi during the medieval period, nagkaroon ng mga turmoils, nagkaroon ng mga destruction. So maraming mga nasira. Okay, so if you're just going to trace back again the history during the classical period, 'di ba nga Griego laban sa mga Romanya. So inokupa ng mga Romanian ang mga Griego, kaya mapapansin nyo halos may impluwensya ang Griego sa mga Romanians at malaki rin ang impact nito sa mahalaking bahagi ng Europe, kaya nagkaroon ngayon ng turmoil. So since you already have your world history class, so masyadong mahaba ang kwento, but the bottom line of it is during the medieval period again there are turmoils. Hence, because of the turmoils that occurred during that time, so kailangan nila ngayon ng age kung saan kailangan silang magkaroon ng rebirth. Hence, the term Renaissance was conceptualized. Okay? So, just like what I would like to point out here, the main objective of the Renaissance period is to recreate the classical models of ancient Greek and Rome. Okay? To recreate. Kaya nga tinuturing ang Renaissance period then na a period of imitation because they are imitating the classical period. They still have the influence of the classical period up to that time ng Renaissance period, but they are trying to make their own recreation. But ngayon titingnan natin kung merong recreation doon sa Renaissance period, paano naka-impluwensya si Aristotle tsaka si Plato when it comes to literary criticism, because that is the sole focus of our discussion. Okay, so the Renaissance was a fervent period of European cultural, artistic, political, and economic rebirth following the Middle Ages. And the Renaissance promoted the rediscovery of classical philosophy, literature, and the arts. Okay, so hindi lang ito may kinalaman doon sa kung paano nila i-re-establish ang kanilang society that time, and part of the society is specifically is on rediscovering the classical philosophy, specifically on literature. That what because that is what we are discussing. Okay, so some of the greatest thinkers, authors, statesmen, scientists, and artists in human history, take note of the term thrived during this era. Kasi nga, di ba, if you are in the process of rebirthing, sabi natin, there is always pain in birth. Okay? There's always pain in birthing. So, kaya talagang when they are trying to uh, to to rebirth there's a site that time, most of these people who are into promoting the rebirth have really thrived in order for them to attain the reformation. Okay, so the Renaissance is also credited, it is also credited with bridging the gap between the Middle Ages and modern day civilization. Okay, so balikan natin ano ba nangyari during the Renaissance period when we talk of literature. So the emergence of the literary movement during the Renaissance period. Kaya kayo meron kayong world literature or world history subject. So there's really a need for you to really take that seriously. Kasi taking them seriously, it will be easier for you to understand the literature during the time, kung bakit ba naging ganoon ang literature nila, kasi parang may domino effect. Okay, so it's because of the things that they did, ito naging resulta. So lagi siyang may epekto when it comes to literature. Now let's try to look at the emergence of the literary movement during the Renaissance period. Okay, so um, along with the renewed cultural interest in all things classical, the history, culture, and writings of ancient Greece and Rome came a fresh concentration on all things about human. So, ang tawag natin dito is humanism. So, if a philosophy is concerned with human, how human should be relevant in the society, how human should be helpful in the society, significant in the society. So that kind of study in philosophical insight is what we call humanism. So tingnan natin dito kung paano ba naipalabas itong humanism during the Renaissance period, wherein that humanism is also an influence of the ancient Greece and Rome, specifically si Aristotle, 'di ba? Si Aristotle, sinasabi niya is about the human being the one who created the literature. Okay. So during the 14th century, the philosophy of humanism began in Italy. Okay? Okay, so it began in Italy. So pag pinag-usapin natin ang mga Italiano, ang mga kilalang writers diyan, we have uh, Petrarch, we have Dante Alighieri. Yan, yung dalawang yan, yan yung dalawa sa mga sikat na writers during their period, of course, with Machiavelli, yung prince. Okay? So, humanism, again, just like what I mentioned, emphasizes that man is the center of the universe and that all human achievements in art, literature, and science should be regarded. Man being the creator of literature, being the creator of art, being someone who studied science, they should be the one that has to be attributed when it comes to the development of these three fields. Okay? So, kaya pag kaya di ba mayroon tayong tinatawag na mayroon tayong course dati na humanities. Ayan. Pag pinag-aralan nyo yung humanities, lagi at lagi pumapasok itong tatlong ito. So, instead of relying on the will of God, people began to act according to their capabilities. So, dito lang sa statement na to, we can really see the conflict between the concept of Plato and Aristotle. Kasi para kay Plato nga, 'di ba, the ultimate creator of all creators is God. So whatever we see in earth are just part of imitation. We as human being, we are also considered as an imitation of that creation. Okay, so kaya talagang makita nyo rin, 'di ba, dun sa painting, isa rin sa mga interpretation is naka-point siya doon sa heaven, pertaining to God, being the prime creator of everything. Okay, so Renaissance writers were full of curiosity about humankind. So ito yung mga question nila. What motivates or inspire people? What angers or pleases them? What makes them good or bad? How will people of different character respond to under pressure? What are the limits to the capabilities of men and women? So these are uh, some of those things that they would like to answer as part of humanism is concerned. And all these questions, if we're just going to look at their literary works, are actually reflected. So they reflected all this some of these questions on their in their literary work. Another one, another set of things that the writers would like to ponder on are what is the nature of human life in this world? Para saan ba at nabubuhay ang isang tao? Ano ba ang halaga ng isang tao sa mundo? Okay? So being the imitation of the creation of God. Is it bad or good? Is the creation of man, or is the nature of human life is bad or good? Yan. Is human free or determined? We do whatever we want, free willing, free going, so we do what the things we like to do. Or are we determined individuals in order for us to attain such things that we would like to attain? Or monumentally important, or are we completely insignificant? So these are some of the questions that the writers would like to give answers in their literary works. And more specifically, literature during the Renaissance period. Okay, so balikan natin yung discussion natin during the classical period. 'Di ba? When we talk of literature during the classical period, we are pertaining to poetry alone. And poetry is categorized into three. So we have narrative poetry, we have drama, and then we have lyrical poetry. And although it's a drama, and parang ito yung tinatawag natin yung theater ngayon, which is stage arts ngayon. However, the manner in which the lines were delivered, or the the script were made, were in a form of poetry, kaya siya tinawag na dramatic poetry. Pero during the Renaissance period, ito nangyari. The dominant forms of English literature during the Renaissance were the poem and the drama. Okay, nagkaroon na ngayon ng separate na existence ang drama. Hindi na siya ngayon nakalagay under the category of a poem. Isa na siya ngayong another main genre of literature. Hence, we have poem and the drama being the main form or main genres of literature. And drama is categorized into two. We have tragedy and then we have comedy. So Aristotle have already had defined what a tragedy is, wherein the characters always end up with, let's say, namatay. Usually namamatay ang main characters, or hindi na attain yung main purpose ng character. Hindi man siya namatay, but in essence, yung main purpose niya is na defeat. Hindi niya na attain. It's still considered as a tragedy. And then we also have comedy, wherein it's not something na nakakatawa, because pag sinabi nating entirely ang isang drama ay nakakatawa, ang tawag natin dun ay farce. I don't know if you still remember farce, but I mentioned this during our speech and stage art class. Ayan. Entirely nakakatawa. Ay, na-mention ko ba tong farce na to? Okay, so but in comedy, it's a happy ending wherein na-attain yung purpose. Pero um, nagkaroon ng modification. Nagkaroon kasi nga rebirth. Although we can really see that there are some things na kinuha nila during the classical period. Okay, so playwrights mixed things up by manipulating the traditional genres of tragedy and comedy. So pinaghalo nila. And this bending work lead to the birth of tragicomedy. When we talk of tragicomedy, alam niyo yung isa sa mga nagpapauso talaga nito during the Renaissance period is si Shakespeare. Yung kanya talaga is not entirely a tragedy. It's not a tragedy. Although tinuturo kasi sa atin that Shakespeare's work is Shakespeare's play are entirely tragedy. In fact, it's a tragicomedy. Paano natin nasabi yun? Let's use a classical example, Romeo and Juliet. Ano ba ang main purpose nila? Ano ba yung pinakang gustong mangyari ng dalawang ito? They want to be together. However, there are conflicts between the family of between the two families, and hindi sila pwedeng maging sila, 'di ba? At the end of the story, to cut the story short, at the end of the story, 'di ba akala ni Juliet patay na si Romeo. So kasi Juliet nagpakamatay. So nung nalaman ni Romeo na namatay si Juliet, nagpakamatay rin si Romeo. Okay, so that's tragedy. Now, it is a tragic comedy. But what makes it a tragic comedy? when the two characters died at the end of the story. Ang titingnan nyo lagi rito is, in order for us to identify if it is really a tragic comedy is, na-attain ba ng character yung purpose niya? Na-attain ba ng main characters? Again, we're focusing on the main characters. Are the main characters were able to attain their purpose or their objective? Ano pang main objective ng main characters sa Romeo and Juliet? Na maging sila. Yun lang naman gusto nila, 'di ba? Na kaya nga 'di ba till death do us part. Okay, yun naman gusto nila eh, maging sila for the rest of their soul. Wala kasi silang buhay eh. So gusto nila ng eternal love. Yun lang naman yung gusto nila mangyari. And yung choice ng character, na magpakamatay. Gusto niya yun eh. Gusto niya yun. Si Juliet, gusto niya yung pakamatay siya. Choice niya yon. Masaya siya doon at buo ang loob niya. Si Romeo, ganun din. Buo ang loob niya. So, bagaman namatay silang dalawa, na-attain nila yung purpose nila eh. Magsama tayo for the rest of our soul. Eternal love. Okay, so on that note, naging yun yung concept natin ng happy ending. Kaya naging tragedy comedy siya. Okay? Kasi again and again na-attain yung objective ng two main characters, si Romeo at si Juliet. Okay? So, yan. Isa yung sinasabing bending works that led to the birth of the tragic comedy. So, doon nakilala si Shakespeare. Although we can say that merong influence ito nung ancient period kasi nga, 'di ba? Ang ancient period halos karamihan ng mga drama during that time ay mga tragedy, yung mga gawa ni Aeschylus, especially the Oedipus Rex. It's a tragedy. Yun talaga plainly tragedy yun kasi uh, hindi naman niya na, although yung may mga goals siya, pero yung main goal niya hindi naman niya talaga entirely na. Some of the major contributions during the Renaissance period are the translations of religious writings into other languages, as in the case of Martin Luther and William Tyndale, wherein their contributions led to religious reformation. So, kilala naman natin si Martin Luther King, di ba? Siya yung nagtatag ng Protestantism. And kaya nga siya nagtatag ng sarili niyang organization, religious organization, or religious sect. It's because there's a conflict with Catholicism during their period, and Catholicism itself is divided. So, Renaissance literature revolved more around having a real humanistic protagonist with a real story to tell. 'Di ba nga, balikan natin ang ibig sabihin ng humanism. So, humanism, from the term itself, human. So, it is entirely focusing on the relevance of the human existence, how relevant human is. Hence, if it is um, focusing on the relevance of human existence or the relevance or significance of human existence, there should be an affirmation of humanistic protagonist wherein dapat real ang magiging portrayal mo. Okay? So, Renaissance literature dealt much more with human characteristics kasi nga humanism sila and behaviors living behind the religious and metaphysical subjects to the medieval era. Okay? So, some of the writings of the time were influenced by Roman and Greek mythology. So, it is common that those writings include heroes, deities, and monsters. Ayun yung sinasabi ko sa inyo na there is an influence of the classical period during the Renaissance period. Okay? So, apparently, because of the heroes, because most of the characters, gamitin na lang natin si Iliad and Odyssey or even Oedipus Rex. So, doon pa lang meron na talagang portrayal of what a hero is. Diba nga si Aristotle, based on his analysis of the tragedy, he discussed of a tragic hero. What are the characteristics of a tragic hero? Okay? So sabi niya dapat ang tragic hero may virtue, mabait. Pero dapat hindi siya perfect. Meron siyang tinatawag nating anong tawag doon? Yung imperfection ng isang very good. Yes. Tragic yes, a Marcia or the tragic flaw. Very good. May natutunan. Okay, so yun, yung dapat correct, isa yun sa mga pinapakita nila dito sa mga um, emerging, not that emerging, the literary works during their period. And of course, deities. So meron ding mga influence ng mga gods and goddesses, but it's not um, uh, the what you call this, hindi masyadong nakafocus doon. And ayan, yung mga monsters. Especially yung mga Dracula, um, usually mga Dracula, mga vampires. Okay? And some of the writing focus in political reformation. Merong mga literary works nung time na yon na ah, akala mo ay parang rinoromanticize pero meron palang pahaging. Let's say for example yung mga works ni Edmund Spencer. Doon pala sa kanyang work na yon tinutiligsa niya rin. Although yung kay Edmund Spencer na tinutiligsa niya yung religion. And sometimes meron din siyang mga pahaging doon sa mga play niyan about some politics. So the writers of the movement imitated art and they hope to change realities with. And imitation means during their time mirroring life. The writer reflected in the end reflected the spirit of exploration that was going on throughout the world. So the Renaissance writers were concerned with monarchs and aristocrats. Kaya talaga, let's say, the Fairy Queen, ang kanyang tinatakal doon is, of course, si, although may pagka metaphorical yung queen doon, but sa queen, mga let's say, mga pamilya nila, Queen Victoria, yung mga yan. So, they wrote about them and also they were men of the court. So, kung mapapansin niyo yung kung babalikan natin yung pinag-aralan natin sa history ng drama, may time doon na kung saan ginagawa yung mga play in front of the palace or in front of a particular place na tinatayuan lang nila ng mga parang malapalasyo. So, on that note alone, we can say that there is really a concern with portraying the lives of the monarchs and aristocrats during their time. This is how they make literature flamboyant. This is how they cover up some political concerns, some political turmoils. Pero sarcasm yon. The Renaissance writer. The earliest Renaissance literature appeared in 14th century in Italy. So some of the notable writers that time were, we have Dante Alighieri. Of course, particular naman kayo sa Divine Comedy or the El Divina Commedia, the Heaven, the Purgatory. Okay? And the and Hell. Ayan. So we have Petrarch, who is notable for his sonnet, the Petrarchan sonnet, which is different when it comes to lines. Pareho sila ni Shakespeare, but what made them different are the construction of ideas, or no, the arrangement of ideas. So kasi si Petrarch 7-7, pag sinabi natin 7-7, yung first 7 nandoon yung background of the story, yung another 7 nandoon yung pasabog. Si Shakespeare 12-2, yung 12 nandoon yung kanyang mga pahaging, yung mga background, yung last two lines nandoon yung kanyang pasabog. At magkaiba rin sila when it comes to rhyme scheme and meter. Okay? Si ano is iambic pentameter ata, si, as far as I remember, iambic pentameter si Shakespeare. Okay? And then we also have Machiavelli. So Machiavelli, yung kanya naman is Il Principe, or the Prince. So the Prince, pero although ginamit niya yung pangalan ng isang monarch dyan, pero again, political philosophy to. Okay, so from Italy, the influence of the Renaissance spread at different rates to other countries and continued to spread throughout Europe through the 17th century. So, pag-aaralan kasi natin dito si Philip Sidney, who came from England. So, from Italy, dadako tayo sa England. Okay, so in Northern Europe, the scholarly writings of Erasmus, the plays of Shakespeare, the poems of Edmund Spenser, and then the works of Sir Philip Sidney. So ito yung mga kilala. Okay, si Shakespeare kilala yan sa sonnet and play. And of course, si Edmund Spenser na laging ginagamit ang play para tuligsain ang religion at politics. Okay? But when we are talking of literary criticism, ang pag-aaralan natin ay yung stand ni Sir Philip Sidney. Kasi si Shakespeare at si Edmund Spenser, wala naman silang ginawang works that are pertaining to literary criticism. It was only Sir Philip Sidney who made a book in response to a attack given by another writer na kung saan ay uh, may ibang views when it comes